Hello again, and welcome to Conversations with the Dean. My guest today is Richard G. Cowart, who is the chair of the Healthcare and Public Policy Practice Group at, and this is quite a long name, Dick, at Baker, Donaldson, Bierman, Caldwell, and Berkowitz. That's a mouthful. Welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you, Dick. Now, you've got a very famous name at the beginning of that long string of names. Tell us who the Baker is in Baker Donaldson.
Sure. Well, the roots of our firm go back to Howard Baker's grandfather in Huntsville, Tennessee. But everyone knows Howard Baker is the Senate Majority Leader and later is President Reagan's Chief of Staff. And he is really one of the icons of America. And in terms of what he's done for Tennessee is just really kind of the father, or one of the fathers of the Republican Party here, was the mentor to our current governor, and certainly been a mentor to me.
How big is the firm today?
Almost 600. We're in 14 offices, mostly the Sun Belt, except the Washington office. And so, we're proud to be one of the top 100 places to work in America by Fortune magazine, and the top-rated Tennessee firm.
How about that? Good for you. Congratulations. Is Senator Baker still active in the firm today? Is he the primary rainmaker for the firm? Would you call him that?
Once upon a time, he is. He's a senior statesman now. I say that after he was ambassador to Japan in the Bush administration, he's been very active in the affairs between America and Japan, and particularly after the tsunami. And one of the things that has been particular importance in that intersect has been the nuclear renaissance, because there are only two nations in the world now that really have the technology to build nuclear reactors, and it's the French and the Japanese. The French have focused on China, the Japanese on America, and if we're going to, and it's TVA's big initiative, and so that's really his sweet spot right now has been how do we do that in a way that makes energy less costly to America.
How old is he today, Dick?
85.
85, but he is still active. Still
Yes,
practices law, still comes in the office.
He still comes into the Huntsville office and spends part of every week at the Baker Center at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville.
Okay. Does he still travel extensively?
He does. He has an airplane, and he does.
How about that? Well, good. Well, now, I want to focus on the health and public policy practice area for your firm, because I know you're not only one of the leading healthcare attorneys in America, actually, you're a former president of the American Healthcare Lawyers Association, which is quite a prestigious position. But I know you're a thought leader and a thinker about the future of healthcare, and I think we're all concerned about that. We read a lot about it. Most of us really don't quite understand what it's going to take to fix the issues with healthcare. So let me just begin by looking down the pike a bit. Tell us what healthcare, in your opinion, will look like in the United States in, let's say, 5 years or maybe 10 years.
Well, we're at a very important juncture, and that is that we have embarked on, well, it's called health reform. It's essentially health insurance reform, and it's an attempt to federalize, really, the health insurance programs. Big changes start happening this year. That is, the states have to form the exchanges. If the states do not form the exchanges, then the federal government's going to run them. That's a big political question now in many states, which is because Republican governors and Republican legislature don't want to set up an exchange and appear to be supporting health reform. But if they don't, the federal government is going to run them. And there's right now probably going to be 24, 25 of these exchanges will be run by the federal government because the states don't want to be part of it. That puts in motion some activities that really culminate in 2014, which is the kind of seminal year under the Accountable Care Act, Affordable Care Act, and that is in the presidential elections of 2012 will probably define whether that occurs. So I think that the current kind of march to the sea of regulation, and there's a chart that literally is 6 feet wide that shows what happens in the next 5 to 6 years. Unless that's changed as a result of the 2012 election, the 2014 changes are pretty much irreversible. And so basically what our call is right now is that if if the politics stay the same, particularly in the Senate, where you'd have to change a big margin, that the Affordable Care Act is currently enacted could very well be the law of the land, at least the parts the Supreme Court leaves intact. So there's a judicial element of it. Now, I try not to be a soothsayer and say, here's what I would do if I were king. I mean, this market is much too complex. It's the largest industry in America. It's 25% of what our law firm does. And so we've got a pretty good view of what's happening at the grassroots and at the policy level. And it's disorderly right now.
Is it a good thing or a bad thing that employers are in the middle of all of this health care in America?
Well, that's a historical artifact. Since the World War, we basically had health insurance provided by employers. And of approximately 300 million Americans, almost 160 million of them get their insurance through employers. If the Affordable Care Act is implemented, I think a lot of that's going to change. I think you will see a significant reduction in employer-sponsored health insurance because it'll be easier to get vouchers, it'll be easier to get pay raises, and then go and buy your insurance through the exchange. But that's where that mandate comes in. I mean, if we do not have some obligation, then giving people a pay raise and telling them to buy health insurance in the exchange will likely result in a bass boat, not health insurance.
Dick, we've all heard about the law of unintended consequences. So was that really an intended consequence, or is that perhaps an unintended consequence of the health reform legislation?
Probably unintended. I think in policy they had hoped that the significant expansion of Medicaid would cover most of the uninsured, and the part that didn't would get, in effect, tax credits and vouchers and would buy in, and that we'd reduce, there's probably between 45 and 50 million Americans without insurance, and we could cut that by 2/3.
We've all heard a lot about the train wreck that supposedly is coming as baby boomers mature. I think there's 73 million baby boomers our age who are about to become eligible for Medicare insurance. If my numbers are correct, and tell me if they're not, but I think the average American in his working lifetime pays in maybe just a little over $100,000 into Medicare, and the average American in their lifetime will take out about $400,000. Clearly those numbers are not sustainable. So what are we going to do to fix that?
Well, and that's one of the problems with health reform, is it really dealt with the insurance piece of it. And if we effectively give most of America an insurance card and say, go get health care wherever you want to receive it, it will be even more expensive. And so the part that has not been addressed is rationalizing of the health system. Now that part is occurring a piece at a time in the marketplace. It is not really driven governmentally right now. There are aspects of it like accountable care organizations or shared savings or like bundled payments that are in their early stages, but the whole cost rationalization of it is still to be done and is not really part of what's we call health reform right now.
Do you think it can be fixed?
Well, I mean, we need a more rationalized system. I mean, in terms of people like to say it's broken. I think it's actually working as we've incentivized it to work. If we want it to work another way, we need to revisit incentives.
Well, don't we have to make it work another way? If those numbers continue to grow
Absolutely.
Geometrically, that's
Absolutely.
a cataclysmic outcome, right?
And exactly, we have chosen to approach it as an insurance, which most countries do not approach their health delivery systems as a product of insurance. Germany does, but Sweden and Great Britain do not. Canada does not. I mean, the government owns the delivery systems. That's not something that's very American. And so exactly, how we're going to achieve it with an insurance model, which is very rare, that you achieve universal coverage through an insurance model versus a delivery model, is something that really wasn't discussed in great detail.
Now, when Sarah Palin campaigned for vice president almost 4 years ago, we heard a lot about death panels. and that became a very politicized term. The fact of the matter is that there's already rationing of the healthcare system. Some people are approved for certain procedures, some people aren't. But will we ever come to the point in this country where the average older person is denied access to health care just simply because they're older and beyond the most productive years of their lives?
Well, I think that'll be very hard in a political system that's publicly funded the way our, and between 50 and 60% of the healthcare expenditures in America are publicly funded. I think what you see in other countries, how they address that, is that they don't deny it. It just takes a long time. For example, Sweden, which has the best healthcare metrics in the world, and so people study that system a lot, has invested about 50% of their healthcare dollar in primary care, and you can get to a primary care doctor immediately. And it means they have good wellness status. Mm-hmm. But if you need a hip replacement, you know, it's going to be 18 months to begin the process. And here, you know, my mother-in-law needed a hip replaced. It was done in 4 days. Now, the difference there, does it affect quality of life? Does it affect, you know, whether or not you're alive at all? I mean, yes, it will. But I think that's what you see in terms of what is rationed. You don't have death panels or super boards that are, you know, deciding on individual cases. Now, doctors may decide it's medically appropriate or inappropriate, but that's medical. That has nothing to do with a financial system.
Well, let me turn to the other side of healthcare. That's the negative side. Let's talk about the positive side, because there are potentially areas for huge improvement in efficiency. For example, we've just started a new master's degree in health informatics, and we were just absolutely flabbergasted at the amount of interest that was shown by healthcare companies to get their people trained in health informatics. Maybe I should ask first, explain what health informatics is, and then let's talk about the promise that better management of information has for the future of healthcare.
Well, the basic component part of the atomic or the nuclear system of healthcare is the physician-patient relationship. And the basic document for that is a medical record. It's been paper, you know, for all our lifetime. And it's rapidly becoming electronic. And in the process, you are getting real-time information, and you're able to get real-time information tools down into a delivery system. But it's being done on a local basis. I mean, Vanderbilt was one of the leaders, and their STAR system became part of the McKesson model, and they've had their physicians on it for over a decade. But there's still doctors' offices in Nashville. You walk in and they're paper medical records. Now, doctors still make 85% of the decisions, and so until the doctors are part of the equation, it really doesn't work in terms of an applied science. You can create all kind of beautiful information systems, but they won't be used, and they won't be effective, and they will just add to time and energy and not produce better, effective results. We're at the tipping point right now, and I think people see it at the tipping point. And that is, in the last decade or so, we've become very good at managing financial metrics real time, because all the financial systems in healthcare have gone digital. Many Blue Cross plans won't even take paper. But the clinical systems have not. And the ability to take the clinical systems and to integrate them with the financial systems is really where we are right now. And the clinical systems have to be built from doctors and nurses and from all the variables that they face every day. And it is an applied science, and we're in the middle of that. And it's a very exciting time. I think people hope that that applied knowledge will be the game changer in terms of costs and efficiencies. I personally think it will be a part of it, but there's still a human side to healthcare that's impossible to replace, and no amount of technology really takes. How much time do you spend, particularly as an elderly patient, with your doctor and with your nurse? So I see it as a major tool, but it's not going to be the solution to healthcare.
Dick, I saw an interview just recently with the inventor of the Motorola cell phone, who is still very much alive and active today. He's an elderly gentleman, but he's a futurist, and he made this statement in this interview that he thought the invention of smartphones will revolutionize healthcare, and that we'll reach the point where the continuous monitoring of people's vitals and other critical health information will actually replace the need for an annual physical, for example. Do you see that? And number two, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Sure. Well, I think when you think of futurists, you can't help but think of John Nesbitt and the original megatrends. And there was a phrase that's been often repeated now from megatrends called high tech, high touch, and that there's a certain balance that you get there. And I think bringing technology to information in healthcare will be tremendous, and the ability to get real-time information accurate will prevent a lot of costs and save a lot of lives. It will not replace high touch. It will not replace the humanity that's a basic part of our healthcare system. There's no other industries where literally healthcare workers lay their hands on the patient, the customer, every day, and you know if they're warm or not, you know if they care or not. That's an element of healthcare that I think is almost spiritual, and it's how the body was made. And so it will help, but it will not replace healing hands.
So do you think it would be a good thing for the government, for example, to incentivize more young people to become physician's assistants? Or is there a way to transform healthcare where we're not as dependent on the number of trained doctors who perhaps require years and years and years of experience to be able to practice?
Absolutely. I think when I was growing up, the dentist cleaned your teeth. Dentists don't clean your teeth anymore. They only do the very complicated things that are necessary. They might spend 5 minutes with you, and that's enough to check on things. Those leverage models have not made it to healthcare, where the doctor can spend 30 minutes with a really sick patient who's got internal complications versus flu shots. And right now under the coding system, you've got to spend X minutes to get Y code. And so there's a lot of growth in that area, and it's really at the state level. Those are called state practice acts. And so nurse practitioners, physician assistants, many of those right now are underway, and there's no way we can give the primary care we need without leveraging it. We just cannot train enough doctors. And right now we spend 80% of our healthcare dollar on specialty care. And so we need to move resources to primary care and leverage it for us to get the health metrics we want.
You've alluded a couple of times in our discussion today about the way the healthcare system is designed, and it's the result of the incentives that we've created. One of the attributes of the system that we happen to have is that it's a fee-for-service system. A doctor is only paid when he or she delivers a service. They're not paid in order to prevent the need to deliver a service. Was there anything in the health reform legislation that increased the doctor's incentive to make us healthier?
Not really, but there's right now there really are two payments. Part A and Part B of Medicare, as examples, are fee-for-service systems. Part C and Part D, particularly Part C, Medicare Advantage, is not a fee-for-service. It's really a capitated system. And HMOs and various forms of health maintenance organizations work on capitation. The Affordable Care Act introduced organizations called accountable care organizations, or ACOs. That's a shared savings model, brand new. It's not a demonstration, it's a new statutory creature. And the pioneers of which are already underway. And the thought there is that they will actually enter into a 3-year contract for a defined population that must exceed 5,000. And if you can save money, then Medicare will share half of it or more with you. It's like many business models designed in Washington, it's a little too complicated right now. I mean, there are 30 things the Federal Trade Commission wants you to do and 22 things the IRS wants you to do, and so we got to simplify it. But if we do, shared savings could be real helpful, and when you look at the bundle payment demonstration projects, which 2 of the Nashville companies did, they found by a bundled payment they could save $4 or $5 million immediately because people were more efficient in their decision making.
Now, you mentioned Nashville companies, and of course your law firm and our university is located in the healthcare services capital of the United States. I think we have maybe about 300 healthcare companies here. Healthcare is extremely important to our economy, and we're extremely important as a city to healthcare all around the United States. Do you see that continuing? Do you think we will continue to be the healthcare services capital of the United States? That's part one of my question. Part two of my question, as we become more globalized, do you think we'll become the healthcare capital of the globe?
Well, I think, well, first in terms of the critical mass, I mean, you can go back to Hospital Corporation of America and hospital affiliates, and they've spawned this tree of organizations. And then you've got leading families like the Frists and the McCorders that have been very collegial in helping people. And in the process, there's a critical mass of management and financial acumen here that's unparalleled anywhere in the country, much as there's a critical mass of engineering, microengineering science in San Jose. And so I think because we've got a lead on it, when it comes to finance and management of healthcare, this is, you know, the place in America. The next stage here, I think, involves, as I mentioned, clinical integration. That's bringing life sciences. The life science community here is still fledgling, but growing. And then health information technology. There really is a kind of jockeying going on right now as to where will the health information center be. Will it be Nashville or Silicon Valley or Seattle? And I think it's you know, Nashville has a chance there. And those are the two next things. In terms of global, you know, from finance and management, and particularly running health facilities like hospitals and surgery centers and diabetes centers and pain centers, those are all built off certain revenue models that don't exist in many other countries, except for in a small part of the country that is fully insured or self-pay. I've been on several trade missions to foreign countries from Nashville, and I think there are aspects of the economies of Brazil and Argentina and Chile and China and Japan and the Eurozones where we can play effectively with that acumen. Whether or not we'll be as dominant is another question. Life sciences absolutely plays a worldwide market. I mean, the human body is essentially the same all over the planet. Mm-hmm. And if we can get more aggressive there, and the same on health information technology. So to blend the two answers, I would say if we can get in the leadership position in life sciences and health information, we will be stronger positioned to be a global player than a domestic player.
You mentioned the Frist family and the McWhorter family. They were, of course, instrumental in the growth of the healthcare industry in Nashville through the companies that they led and founded. Has hospital consolidation been a good thing for healthcare in the United States?
Well, I think what's happened is that there were reimbursement advantages in the 60s and the 70s in the 70s and the 80s that really don't exist anymore. But now the economies of scale and skill help a lot. And so bringing good management is always helpful to an industry. In periods of high change, and this is the biggest in my career, when Hillary Care had a scare to healthcare in the mid-90s, people flee to safety, and they look for quality, and they look for the strongest person to be associated with. So right now, there's a very big consolidation wave underway, and it's in all sectors. Hospital being the one Nashville sees, but health insurance being, right now there's 1,600 health insurers in America. 800 of them have most of the business, and it's widely predicted only 200 of them survive health reform. Because you'll have to be big and broad and diverse in order to play in all the markets. Now, does that counterbalance the provider side? To a way, because doctors right now are joining hospital systems rapidly. And then so you have in Nashville really three basic provider systems: Vanderbilt, St. Thomas Baptist, and HCA. So consolidation is happening, I think, not necessarily because it's good, but because it's the reality of change. We've got to make it good once it happens.
There's so many more things I'd love to ask you about regarding healthcare and health reform and this fascinating industry that you're a part of. But we're almost out of time, and so let me just close our program by asking you again about Senator Baker. It must be a joy to work with him on a daily basis, and he's quite a legend in Tennessee as well as in the United States. Tell me your favorite Howard Baker story.
Well, he's such a humble person. I mean, I tell you, when he tells you, the story about meeting with Gorbachev, or he tells you stories with Reagan, or even getting the Panama Canal Treaty passed. I mean, he just does it in such an ordinary. But the one he likes the most is when he was actually running for president, and he was in Florida with his family, and he received a call from the White House, and that the president wanted to meet with him, and we were in the middle of the Iran-Contra affair at the time. And so Senator Baker says, the president's going to ask me to do something. I don't know what it is, but he's going to ask me to do something. And he was all geared to say no. He gets to the White House, he rides up to the second floor, and President Reagan meets him as the elevator and shakes his hand and proceeds to just walk him into the anteroom and ask him if he'll be his chief of staff. And Senator Baker says, I watched myself say yes, and I don't know how it happened. but the truth is, America has asked Senator Baker to do a lot of things, to be Senate Majority Leader, to be a Chief of Staff and really save a Reagan presidency, to be Ambassador to Japan while China was rising, who was our two biggest trading partners. And he has always responded, and I think there's no greater message than that. When the nation calls, Senator Baker was there.
Dick, thank you for being with us today. It's
My
great
pleasure.
to have you on the campus. Our guest today has been Richard G. Cowart, who is the chair of the Healthcare and Public Policy Group at Baker Donaldson Law Firm. Thanks for being with us. We hope you'll join us again soon.